So now that you've gone through and you've seen some of, the setup material for the class here, we've talked a little bit about why we need multimedia on the web. We've talked a little bit about, getting access to the Adobe Creative Suite for the 3+ weeks of class. And the thing we haven't really talked about yet is kind of the historical elephant in the room. It is Animate as it pertains to Adobe Flash. So by now, some of you have started going through the book material and you've noticed that we're saving things as SWF files, shock, wave, flash. Not only is, I will admit to you, number one, that seems like an anachronism. It's very old. It's still the default file format that Adobe uses for its multimedia for the web content. So we're going to use it as our multimedia for the web content. But really what we should do here is take just a couple of moments and explore why it is that we are no longer using Flash. We are using Animate, which for all intents and purposes is legitimately Flash by another name. So first, the good. We'll do this in the traditional crap sandwich kind of way, where we put the nasty stuff in the middle and then we, on the outside have positive things to say. So first and foremost, if you have ever thought to yourself that the web and the way that you interact with the web has ever been positive, you owe that to Flash. So, if you've ever seen an advertisement that caught your eye, that looked good, that was because of Flash. If you had ever played a simple game online, that was because of Flash. And that really the only tool that is or was widely available to be able to make that kind of interactive content was Flash. Even better, as we moved into the mobile, the mobile experience, I'll call it. So here with our phones, with our tablets, that's what I'm doing this recording on. I'm expecting my Mac Studio, so my typical video array is all pulled down. But anyway, as we move into the mobile sphere for things, the very first platinum selling games were actually just Flash translations. So things like Cut the Rope, which to this day, my little guy still actually plays on an iPad, that came from Flash. And the interactivity it gave us, the sheer scalability, everything was so small. So even when we had really, really crummy internet connection speeds, which I know many of us still do, but when everybody shared that same crummy connection speed, Flash was great because those file sizes are so small. The difficulty comes in when you're really trying to refine on how fast and how responsive our multimedia can be. There is where the issues really started to creep in with Flash. What ends up happening is developers can either work fast or we can work in ways that optimize system performance. Fast is usually the way we have to work, just based on our workload. So rather than make our assets be gentle on a system, what ends up happening is the assets we create in Flash essentially hemorrhage resources. They hemorrhage memory. And what ends up happening is, for all of us who have ever used Chrome, we have felt this. If I have someplace in a Chrome tab way out here in the background, right? I have a Chrome tab with an advertisement that just plays on a loop. What can happen is those, the assets for that piece of multimedia can start just chewing up RAM. And what ends up happening is it eats up all the RAM that that tab or that window or even that browser had available to it. And in all honesty, very, very probably if you had, I'm just going to pick on Chrome, a Chrome crash, let's say through the early 2000s through the very final days of Flash, we'll call it like 2014 through 17. That was probably because of a Flash asset that was a little too hungry for resources. A lot of the Windows crashes you would have experienced during that time were also because of overly aggressive resources for Flash assets. And Adobe knew it had a problem. Compounded with that was just how many, they're called zero-day vulnerabilities, or how many security vulnerabilities were discovered because of Flash. It was a resource to be able to connect quickly to online resources. It just also happened to be crazy easy to be able to inject malicious code into that that particular transaction. So it turns out that Flash, on top of being a memory, on top of being a resource hog, was also really a danger to systems. So as more of the mobile systems come online, Android, iOS, at the time Windows Mobile, weird, right? All of those decided it's really not a good idea to run Flash here anymore because it's dangerous and it's a resource hog. Well, if you shutter Flash, you have no other software that's able to provide as quick and as dense and as rich a multimedia experience as Flash could. And this is what essentially happens. Animate is very nearly one for one a replacement, it's just a rebranding of Flash. For the most part, the stages are the same, the menus are the same, everything remained the same. It's the output that can be different. So for the most part now, not the stuff you'll be handing in for homework, I just want you to know that this is a career-wise decision that you should make as to how it is that you'll output your assets. Instead of as Flash, you will output them as HTML5 and CSS canvases. That way, when you create your asset, you can have it run on a Windows PC, you can have it run on a Mac, and you can also have it run here on an iPad, and it doesn't matter because they are now HTML5, CSS, and Canvas elements. That is a much better way for your asset to reach a much larger crowd, and also with fewer resource penalties, and also with fewer security penalties, and that's the way to go. So for any of you who have potentially had an experience with Flash in the past, this is going to look very, very similar, and that's by design, because Animate replaces Flash by simply changing its name, and here we are.